In this video, we're going to be finding out once and for all which is the best f2.8 wide to medium telephoto zoom lens for Sony E-mount cameras. So needless to say, there is a lot of ground to cover today as we have 4 zoom lenses to look at, namely the brand new Sigma 28-70mm f2.8 DG-DN contemporary lens, the Sigma 24-70mm f2.8 DG-DN art lens, the Tamron 28-75mm f2.8 Di3 RXD, and finally the Sony 24-70mm f2.8 G Master. So let's start by taking a quick look at the specs of each of these lenses, going from the cheapest to the most expensive. The Tamron 28-75mm is the first one up in our list, priced at £699 or $769 and weighing in at 550 grams or 19.4 ounces. This lens is made from mainly hard plastics, but it has a nicely rubberized zoom ring and a focus ring, as well as a metal lens mount and some weather sealing on the bottom. Though it is worth mentioning that there is no MF to AF switch on this lens, which means toggling between auto to manual focus has to be done using the back of your camera. The zoom ring on the Tamron rotates without any stickiness at all, though there is a very subtle amount of grittiness to it, not enough to be offensive in any way at all, but certainly not as nice as the other lenses in this lineup. Next up is the Sigma 28-70mm, which is priced at £759 or $899 and weighs just 470 grams or 16.6 ounces, making it the lightest and smallest zoom in the group. This lens is made from a thermally stable composite material and includes a rubberized zoom ring and a plastic focus ring. On the lens barrel, there's an MF to AF switch, and on the base, there's a metal lens mount with weather sealing. The zoom ring rotates nice and smoothly, and although it's slightly heavy to rotate, there's no stickiness to it, so you can easily zoom from wide to telephoto in one consistent movement. Third on the list is the Sigma 24-70mm, which you can pick up these days for £1,049 or $1,075 and weighs 835 grams or 29.5 ounces. The lens body is constructed from a mixture of metal and hard plastics, and it has a dust and splash-proof structure to help keep the internal components safe from bad weather. This lens comes with a few more features than the previous 2 lenses. Of course, it has the obligatory MF to AF switch, but it also includes a customizable AF lock button that can be set as a shortcut to a host of different camera settings. One other feature that this lens includes is a zoom lock switch, which helps to keep it fixed in a retracted position at 24mm, which is handy when transporting this thing around. Both the focus ring and the zoom ring are rubberized, and the zoom ring turns with a nice smooth motion with no stickiness. And on the base, there's a metal lens mount with weather sealing. Finally, we've come to the Sony 24-70mm, which is priced at a whopping £1,699 or $2,098, and it weighs 886 grams or 31.25 ounces. This lens is constructed mainly from metal and high quality plastics, and this lens also boasts a dust and moisture resistant design, featuring nicely rubberized focus and zoom rings, which both rotate nice and smoothly without any stickiness. On the lens body, there's an MF to AF switch, a zoom lock switch, and a customizable button, and on the bottom there's a metal lens mount with a weather seal. In terms of price, the Sigma 28-70mm and the Tamron 28-75mm are by far the best value for money options, so they both deserve a point here. As for build quality, I think all of these lenses are very nicely put together and deserve a point apiece. But before we can decide on points for handling, we first need to talk about manual focus. When shooting with manual focus using either of the Sigma lenses or the Sony, the focusing ring operates nice and smoothly, and the focus is very accurate and responsive to your hand movements, making it nice and easy to lock onto your target for either refining critical focus for photos or for creating focus pulls during video recording. However, when shooting with the Tamron, we notice that the focus has a noticeable delay to it, and it's really inconsistent, which makes it very difficult to perform even just a very simple focus pull. Now, although the Tamron is small and lightweight, it does get some marks for that because it's lovely on a full frame camera. The lack of an MF to AF switch on the side and also the frustrating manual focus means that it's not as nice to use as the other lenses in this test. Equally, although the Sigma 24-70 and the Sony 24-70 both have lots of manual buttons, their weight and their size just don't make them quite as nice to use as the smaller Sigma 28-70. So for me, in this round, the Sigma 28-70mm is the overall winner. Next up, it's time to see how these lenses will handle themselves when shooting out in the field. During testing, I'm pleased to say that all of these lenses were able to work flawlessly with my Sony a7 Mark III's Face Detect and IAF. With Face Detect and IAF switched off, all of the lenses were able to operate quickly and quietly in good lighting conditions with absolutely no signs of hunting. In our low light test, all of the contenders would occasionally struggle to find focus, though to be fair, the room was incredibly dark and this is a very tough test for f2.8 lenses. The good news to take away from this test though is that none of the lenses hunted wildly during this test and they all eventually would lock onto the subject, so it wasn't a disastrous result. So in short, in this round, I think all of the lenses gain a point. When it comes to focus breathing, both of the Sigma lenses and the Sony exhibited very little movement when adjusting from near to far focus, which is good news for videographers. On the other hand, the Tamron exhibited noticeable focus breathing, so if this is something that really bothers you in a lens, then you may want to consider one of the other options instead. When switching over to video mode, all 4 lenses were able to track a moving subject walking towards the camera at a regular pace when shooting wide open at f2.8. Repeating the test at a faster pace presented the same results. As for AF noise, both of the Sigma lenses and the Tamron were insanely quiet and really didn't make any noise at all. The Sony overall was also very quiet, but there was a slight croaking noise that was able to be picked up by our camera's built-in microphone. And so, at the end of this round of testing, all 4 lenses grabbed themselves another point. In our Bokeh balls test, the Sony offered the best results with nice round orbs across the frame, with the Tamron as a close second where the orbs only became slightly elliptical towards the very edges of the image. Both of the Sigmas provided the same results with slightly elliptical orbs at the centre turning more cat's eye shape towards the edges of the frame. So at the end of this round, although the Sony is the clear winner, the Tamron is a close enough second place to score itself another point. So now we need to look at lens charts, and I do warn you, there are a fair few of them. So rather than boring the absolute piss out of everyone, I'm just going to go through them very, very quickly and give you the footnotes. However, if this type of thing really gets your dick hard and you'd love to pore over these lens charts in far more detail than we have time for, then good news, there's a link in the description below where you can download them for totally free, so knock yourself out. So at f2.8 at the wide end of these lenses, all of them exhibit barrel distortion and dark corners. At the center, they're all very sharp at this focal length, though surprisingly, the Sony is slightly softer than the rest. There's also no chromatic aberration on any of the results. At the corners, all of them get a little bit softer, but there's still no chromatic aberration. At the long end of each of these lenses, we now see that all of the lenses have pin cushion distortion instead of barrel distortion. And in the center, all 4 lenses are softer than they were at the wide end, and the sharpness is pretty much identical across all 4 lenses. All of the lenses now exhibit a very small touch of chromatic aberration around the high contrast areas. At the corners, things get a little bit softer, but chromatic aberration doesn't get any worse. Back to the wide end of these lenses again, and at their minimum focusing distances, which are shown on screen, all 4 lenses are still very sharp and there's no chromatic aberration. It's also quickly worth noting that the Sony is the odd one out here, as it isn't able to focus anywhere near as close to the target compared to its competitors. Shooting at the minimum focusing distance of each lens at the long end, the Sony and the Tamron offer the sharpest results here, with the Sigmas offering a slightly softer image. All of the lenses still have a very small amount of chromatic aberration though. So lens charts are fun and all, but the question is, how does all of this information translate into real-world images? I'm pleased to say that none of the lenses produce any noticeable color cast, so no matter which lens you end up choosing out of our lineup, you're going to be able to achieve natural-looking skin tones for your portraits. Subscribers to the channel will know that I'm actually a big fan of prime lenses rather than zooms, though after this test I can now fully appreciate why people love zooms with this kind of focal range. These lenses offer so much flexibility while shooting, and being able to switch from a super wide full-length portrait to an incredibly close-up detail shot with just the turn of a zoom rings was a massively refreshing experience for me, and I was super happy with the results I came away with all of the lenses. All of these lenses managed to nail the focus throughout the shoot, and I was absolutely spoilt for choice when it came to selecting the final few images to edit, with very few images from the set being out of focus. Of all of the lenses, I'll have to admit I have a slight soft spot for the Sigma 28-70 and also the Tamron, purely because they were the nicest to work with based off their smaller frame and lighter weight. Although the other Sigma and the Sony still felt very nicely balanced on my Sony a7 Mark III, they are almost double the weight of these other 2 lenses, and after a day of shooting, it does feel like you've had a bit of a workout. One final thing I should address is that obviously, if you've been paying attention, all of these lenses have a slightly different focal range. Two of them start at 24mm, whilst the others start at 28. And the Tamron ends at 75mm whilst the rest stop at 70. So what impact does this have on your images? Well, when it comes to wide angle lenses, a few millimeters can actually make quite a big difference. As you can see here, where one image has been taken at 24mm and it's quite a bit wider than the one taken at 28mm. So if having the widest possible angle on your zoom lens is something that is super important to you, then the Sigma 24-70 and the Sony 24-70 might be the ones to go for. At the other end of the lens, however, the difference between 70mm and 75mm is barely noticeable. So my advice here would be that you don't go running out to buy the Tamron just because it's slightly longer, because that extra 5mm at the end really won't make that much difference. So after all of that, I think in all honesty, all of these lenses deserve a point apiece in this final round because all of them are capable of capturing fantastic looking images. So which of these lenses do I think is the best? Personally, my favorite of the bunch would have to be the Sigma 28-70mm, not only because it's very, very well priced, but it's very small, lightweight, and the image quality is comparable to any of the lenses in the group. However, if 28mm just isn't wide enough for you and you had to pick between the Sigma 24-70 or the Sony 24-70, then my advice would be to go for the Sigma, because although the Sony offers better looking bokeh balls, that does not justify that massive price tag. So save your money, get the Sigma instead. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel as I release new videos just like this every single Friday.